Admiral Kethavar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking out at the stars through the wide windows. His ship, called the Dominion's Edge, was bigger than most cities. It was black like the space around it, covered in smooth metal that seemed to eat light. The ship had weapons that could destroy planets and shields that could stop almost anything. Behind him, hundreds of other Valdari warships floated in perfect rows. Each ship was deadly. Each ship had destroyed worlds. Together they were the most powerful force in the galaxy. The Valdari Empire had been conquering planets for thousands of years. They had never lost a war. They had never met an enemy they could not beat. "Admiral," said War Commander Velthara, walking up to him. She was tall and thin like all Valdari, with pale blue skin and black eyes. Her uniform was covered in medals from 100 battles. "The fleet is ready. All ships report they are prepared for the next conquest." Kethavar nodded. He was older than most Valdari commanders, with scars on his face from battles long ago. He had personally led the conquest of over 200 worlds. Some planets surrendered when they saw his ships. Others tried to fight. It did not matter. The result was always the same. "Show me the target," he said. Velthara touched a button on her arm device. A large screen appeared in the air between them. It showed a small blue and green planet spinning slowly in space. The planet looked peaceful. It had white clouds and blue oceans. It looked almost pretty. "This is the world called Earth," Velthara said. "It is the third planet in a yellow star system. The species that lives there calls themselves humans." Strategic analyst Morden joined them at the screen. He was younger than the others, but very smart. His job was to study enemy worlds before the fleet attacked. He touched the screen and more pictures appeared. "The humans are very primitive," Morden said. "They still use chemical rockets to travel in space. Their fastest ships take months to travel between their own planets. They have nuclear weapons, but they are old and simple. Most of their world is not even united under one government." Kethavar studied the pictures. He saw human cities that looked tiny compared to Valdari cities. He saw their space stations that were smaller than his smallest fighter ships. He saw their armies with weapons that looked like toys. "How many humans live on this world?" he asked. "About 8 billion, Morden replied. "They live in many different countries. These countries sometimes fight each other with primitive weapons. They seem to spend more time fighting themselves than preparing for real threats." Velthara laughed. It was a cold sound. 8 billion primitives who cannot even unite their own world. "This will be easier than our last conquest. The Zephyrians at least had energy shields. The Zephyrians had been their last enemy. They lived on crystal worlds and could control electricity with their minds. They had fought bravely for 3 months before surrendering. But even they had been no match for Valdari technology and tactics. "What about their space forces?" Kethavar asked. Morden showed more pictures. Small human ships appeared on the screen. They looked fragile and slow. "They call it the Earth Defense Force," Morden said. "They have maybe 100 ships total. Most are just transport vessels. Their largest warship is smaller than our smallest destroyer. Their weapons cannot even scratch our shield systems." Kethavar had seen this many times before. Primitive worlds always thought their simple weapons could protect them. They never understood how outmatched they were until it was too late. "The humans do have one strange thing," Morden continued. "They seem to be very good at adapting. In their short history, they have created many new technologies very quickly, but they are still thousands of years behind us." "Adapting means nothing against superior firepower," Velthara said. She had heard this before. Some analyst always found something interesting about the next target. It never mattered in the end. The screen changed to show human leaders. They were small creatures with different skin colors and hair. They looked soft and weak compared to the tall, strong Valdari. "Their leaders are divided," Morden said. "Some want to fight. Others want to surrender immediately. There is one general named Cho Minji, who seems to be preparing their defenses. But what can one general do with such primitive forces?" Kethavar had fought many generals. Some were brave. Some were smart. All of them had lost in the end. "How long will this conquest take?" he asked. "1 day, maybe 2, Velthara answered. "We can destroy their space forces in the first hour. After that, they will have no choice but to surrender." This was the standard plan. First, the Valdari would destroy all enemy ships in space. Then they would position their warships around the planet and demand surrender. Most worlds gave up at this point. Those that did not would face orbital bombardment until they changed their minds. "There is one small problem," Morden said. He looked uncomfortable. What problem? Kithvar asked. We sent 3 scout ships to Earth last month. They were supposed to gather detailed information about human defenses. We have not heard from them since they arrived. Velthara frowned. They were destroyed? No, Morden said. We would have detected explosions or debris. The ship simply stopped sending signals. Their last report said everything was normal. Then nothing. This was unusual. Valdari scout ships were fast and nearly invisible. They could observe a world for months without being detected. For 3 ships to go silent was strange. Equipment failure, Velthara said. Those ships were old. Their communication systems probably broke down. Kethvar was not so sure. In 40 years of war, he had learned to pay attention to unusual things. But 3 missing scout ships was not enough to worry about. Maybe their equipment had failed. Maybe they had been hit by meteors. There were many possible explanations. It does not matter, he said finally. We have enough information to proceed. These humans cannot hide anything from our main fleet sensors. The order was given. The massive Valdari fleet began moving toward Earth. 1,000 warships, each one capable of destroying a city with a single shot. They moved in perfect formation through space, their dark hulls reflecting starlight. On the bridge of the Dominion's edge, Admiral Kethvar felt the familiar excitement of another easy victory. Soon there would be another conquered world to add to the Empire, another species to serve Valdari masters, another system to provide resources for their endless expansion. He had no idea that far ahead of him on the small blue world, humans were doing something no other species had ever done before. They were preparing for the Valdari arrival. They had been preparing for a very long time. But Admiral Kethvar did not know this. Like every Valdari commander before him, he expected fear, panic, and quick surrender. He expected another easy conquest to add to his long list of victories. He was about to learn that humans were nothing like any enemy the Valdari had ever faced. The fleet moved through space toward Earth. Confident and unstoppable, behind them, they left empty star systems and conquered worlds. Ahead of them waited something new, something that would change the Valdari Empire forever, something that had been waiting for them to come. The Valdari fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. 1,000 black warships appeared in perfect formation, blotting out stars with their massive hulls. Each ship powered up its weapons and shields. Energy readings spiked across every sensor in the system. Admiral Kethvar watched from his command bridge as his ships moved into position. This was the intimidation formation, perfected over thousands of conquests. The sight of so many powerful warships had made entire civilizations surrender without firing a shot. Begin the broadcast, he ordered. Across 47 different languages, the ultimation of submission began transmitting toward Earth. The message was simple and had never changed. Surrender now or be destroyed. Join the Empire willingly or be conquered by force. Choose quickly, because Valdari patience was limited. Response coming in from the planet, reported Communications Officer Zartal. He was young for his position, but good at his job. They are answering on multiple frequencies. Put it through, Kethvar said. The main screen flickered and showed a human face. It was a woman with dark hair and calm eyes. She wore some kind of military uniform. Behind her, other humans worked at control panels that looked surprisingly advanced for such a primitive species. This is General Cho Minji of the Earth Defense Force, the woman said. Her voice was steady and showed no fear. I am responding to your message. Velthara leaned forward. Most alien leaders were terrified by this point. They begged for mercy or demanded to know what the Valdari wanted. This human seemed almost relaxed. You have heard our terms, Kethvar said into the communication device. Your world must surrender to the Valdari Empire. You have 1 hour to decide. General Cho Minji smiled. It was not the smile of someone who was afraid. Actually, Admiral, we've been waiting for you. The Valdari officers looked at each other in confusion. Waiting for them? How was that possible? Their movement through space was secret. No primitive world should know they were coming until they arrived. Waiting? Kethvar asked. Yes, the human general said. We've been expecting visitors from the Valdari Empire for quite some time now. We've prepared accordingly. Strategic Analyst Morden quickly checked his instruments. Admiral, this is impossible. Our approach was completely hidden. No primitive sensor system could detect us at interstellar distances. But something was wrong. As the fleet moved deeper into the solar system, strange readings began appearing on their screens. The planet Earth looked different than it had in the scout reports. There were structures in space around it that had not been there before. "Sir," called sensor operator Yethmar, "I'm detecting unusual energy signatures throughout this system. The planet's magnetic field is fluctuating in patterns I've never seen before." Kethvar studied the sensor displays. Several of Earth's moons seemed to have moved from their original positions. That should be impossible. Moving a moon required technology far beyond what humans possessed. There are also artificial structures throughout the system, Yethmar continued. Large ones. They appear to be made of some kind of crystalline material that bends light around it. On the communication screen, General Cho Minji was still smiling. "I should probably introduce you to some of our people, Admiral. They've been working very hard to prepare for this day." The screen split to show other human faces. A man in a white coat appeared first. "This is Dr. Park Hae-young," General Cho Minji said. "He leads our quantum physics research division. Dr. Park has some interesting theories about space and time." Dr. Park nodded politely at the Valdari. "Hello, Admiral. I hope you enjoyed your journey here. Traveling through hyperspace can be very tiring." Another human appeared on screen. This one wore a military uniform similar to the general's. "Commander Kim Tae-woo handles our strategic operations," General Cho Minji continued. "He's been studying Valdari tactical methods for several years now." Kim Tae-woo looked directly at Admiral Kethvar. "Your intimidation formation is very impressive, Admiral. We've seen you use it successfully against the Zephyrians, the Korathans, and the Stellar Federation. Very effective against conventional forces." Kethvar felt a chill run down his spine. How did this primitive human know about Valdari battles against other species? Those conquests had happened far from Earth years ago. "How do you know about our previous campaigns?" Felthara demanded. "We know many things," General Cho Minji said calmly. "For instance, we know about your missing scout ships." The bridge fell silent. Morden stepped forward, his face pale. "What happened to our scouts?" he asked. "They're safe," Dr. Park Hae-young said. "We've been taking very good care of them. They've been quite helpful in understanding Valdari technology and tactics." Admiral Kethvar realized with growing horror what the human was saying. The scout ships had not been destroyed. They had been captured. Somehow these primitive humans had captured advanced Valdari vessels without anyone knowing about it. "Impossible," Velthara said. "Our scouts are invisible to primitive sensors." Commander Kim Tae-woo smiled. "Invisible to primitive sensors, yes, but we stopped being primitive some time ago." The main tactical display suddenly lit up with new contacts. Human ships were appearing throughout the system. Not just a few ships, hundreds of them. They materialized out of empty space as if they had been hiding in plain sight. "Sir," Yethmar called out in alarm. "Multiple contacts appearing on all sensors. I count over 300 human vessels." "They were not there a moment ago. How is that possible?" Kethvar demanded. On the screen, Dr. Park Hae-young looked pleased. "Dimensional folding technology, Admiral. We learned the principles from studying your scout ship's engines. Then we improved on them." Another human appeared on the communication screen. He was older, with gray hair and many medals on his uniform. "Admiral Yu Jinyuk," General Cho Minji introduced him, "Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Network." Admiral Yu looked at the Valdari with steady eyes. "Admiral Kethvar, your reputation precedes you. 200 worlds conquered, never a single defeat. Very impressive." "You know nothing about us," Kethvar said, though he was no longer certain this was true. "We know quite a lot, actually," Admiral Yu replied. "We know your ships carry approximately 40,000 crew members each. We know your main weapons are plasma cannons with a range of 50,000 kilometers. We know your shields can absorb energy equivalent to several nuclear explosions." He paused and smiled. "We also know your weaknesses." War Commander Velthara had heard enough. "Admiral, we should begin the attack immediately." "Something is very wrong here," Kethvar agreed. Whatever these humans had learned, whatever technology they possessed, the Valdari still had superior numbers and firepower. 1,000 warships against 300 primitive vessels should still be an easy victory. "All ships prepare for battle," he ordered. "Target the human vessels and prepare to fire." But as his weapons officer began targeting the human ships, something impossible happened. The Valdari weapon systems began malfunctioning. Targeting computers flickered and went dark. Energy readings fluctuated wildly. "Sir, I can't get a weapons lock," the weapons officer reported. "Something is interfering with our targeting systems." On the communication screen, Dr. Park Hae-young looked sympathetic. "I'm afraid that won't work, Admiral. You see, we've learned quite a lot about Valdari technology from your scout ships, including how to interfere with it." General Cho Minji leaned forward. "Admiral Kethvar, I'm going to make you an offer. Your empire has conquered many worlds through superior technology and tactics. But today you face something new. Today you face humans." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Leave this system now and we'll consider this a misunderstanding. Continue your expansion elsewhere, and we'll have no quarrel with you. But if you try to conquer Earth, you'll discover why we've been preparing for your arrival." Admiral Kethvar stared at the screen. In 40 years of war, no enemy had ever spoken to him like this. No primitive world had ever been ready for Valdari arrival. No species had ever captured Valdari scouts without anyone knowing about it. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Kethvar felt something he had not experienced in decades. He felt uncertain, and that uncertainty was about to become something much worse. Admiral Kethvar made his decision. Whatever tricks these humans possessed, the Valdari Empire had not conquered 3,000 worlds by backing down from primitive species. "All ships, attack formation," he commanded. "Ignore the targeting problems. Fire manually if necessary. Show these humans what happens when they challenge the Empire." The massive Valdari fleet began moving into attack position. 1,000 warships spread out across space, their weapons charging with deadly energy. Even if their computers were malfunctioning, Valdari crews could still fight manually. They had done it before. But as the first Valdari ships opened fire, something impossible happened. The plasma beams that should have destroyed human vessels simply passed through them without causing any damage. The human ships flickered like mirages, there one moment and gone the next. "What are our sensors showing?" Kethvar demanded. The human ships appear to be existing in multiple locations at the same time. Sensor operator Yethmar replied, his voice confused. "I'm reading the same vessel in 3 different positions simultaneously." On the communication screen, Commander Kim Tae-woo looked pleased. "Quantum superposition, Admiral. Our ships exist in several possible states until we choose which one becomes real. Your weapons can only hit one version at a time." Before Kethvar could respond, the human ships began their counterattack. But they did not attack like any enemy the Valdari had ever faced. Human vessels appeared inside the Valdari formation without warning. They materialized inside the protective shield barriers, fired devastating weapons at close range, then vanished before the Valdari could respond. It was like fighting ghosts. "Sir, the destroyer blade of Empire is under attack," reported Communications Officer Zartal. "Human ships are firing from inside their shields. How are they getting past our barriers?" Velthara demanded. Dr. Park Hae-young's voice came through the speakers. "Your shields stop matter and energy from passing through, but they can't stop things that exist in folded space-time." Captain Lee Do-hyun was leading the first wave of human attacks. His ship, the probability rose, flickered in and out of normal space like a living thing. One moment it was attacking a Valdari cruiser from above. The next moment it was firing from below. "All human vessels, begin probability strikes," Lee Do-hyun ordered over the human communication channels. "Remember, we exist in multiple quantum states. Use that advantage." The Valdari tried to adapt. They fired energy webs to catch the human ships. They used gravity weapons to pull them into normal space. Nothing worked. The humans seemed to be fighting by completely different rules. Then things got worse. Commander Kim Tae-woo activated the second phase of Earth's defense plan. Throughout the solar system, massive structures that had been disguised as asteroids suddenly revealed themselves. They were dimensional anchors, devices that could trap enemy ships in pocket dimensions. "Sir," Yethmar called out in alarm. "The cruiser Dark Victory just disappeared. It was there one moment, gone the next." "Where did it go?" Kethvar demanded. "Unknown, sir. It's like it was pulled into another dimension." Inside the pocket dimension, the crew of the Dark Victory found themselves in a maze-like space that defied all logic. Corridors bent back on themselves. Up and down changed without warning. And hunting them through this impossible space were human soldiers led by Major Oh Seojin. "Welcome to our little trap," Oh Seojin said over the ship's communication system. "You wanted to conquer our world. Now let's see how you handle being the hunted instead of the hunters." The Valdari crew tried to fight back, but their weapons and tactics meant nothing in this twisted space. Every corridor led to another ambush. Every door opened onto something unexpected. Back in normal space, more Valdari ships were disappearing. The humans were using their dimensional anchor technology to pull entire vessels out of reality, trapping them in custom-made prisons where human forces held every advantage. Admiral Kethvar watched his mighty fleet being torn apart by an enemy that should not exist. These humans fought like nothing he had ever encountered. Where other species use superior technology or better tactics, humans use pure creativity and adaptation. "Sir, we've lost contact with 17 ships," Velthara reported. Her usual confidence was gone, replaced by growing panic. "They're not destroyed, they're just gone. How is this possible?" Kethvar asked. General Cho Minji's voice came through the speakers. "We've been studying warfare for thousands of years, Admiral. Not just our own wars, but every form of conflict we could imagine. When we learned about your empire, we realized we needed to think differently." Dr. Song Yunji appeared on the communication screen. She was a young woman with bright eyes and a calm expression. "I lead our dimensional research project," she explained. "We call it Project Looking Glass. We've been experimenting with ways to manipulate space and time for over 10 years. 10 years? Morden asked. "But you only learned about our empire recently." Dr. Song smiled. "Actually, we've known about the Valdari Empire for much longer than you think. Your scout ships weren't the first Valdari vessels to visit our system. This was impossible. Kethavar knew the complete records of all Valdari exploration missions. No ship had ever been to Earth before the recent scouts." "You're lying," he said. "Am I?" Dr. Song asked. "Tell me, Admiral, do you remember a deep space exploration vessel called the Starseeker? It disappeared about 15 years ago while mapping distant star systems." Kethvar felt cold dread wash over him. He did remember that ship. It had vanished without a trace during a routine exploration mission. The Valdari had assumed it was destroyed by some space disaster. "We found the Starseeker drifting in our outer system," Dr. Song continued. "Its crew was in deep hibernation. We woke them up carefully, treated them well, and learned everything we could about your empire." Lieutenant Colonel Ryu Sungmin appeared on screen next to her. "Those crew members told us about Valdari expansion plans, about your tactics, your technology, your methods of conquest. They gave us 15 years to prepare. 15 years to study your weaknesses," Commander Kim Tae-woo added. 15 years to develop countermeasures for every weapon, every strategy, every tactical doctrine your empire has perfected. The battle continued to go badly for the Valdari. Human ships continued to appear and disappear like phantoms. More Valdari vessels were being pulled into pocket dimensions. The humans were not just winning. They were making the mighty Valdari fleet look helpless. Captain Baek Ji-won commanded the human stealth carrier Silent Thunder. Her ship was invisible to all Valdari sensors, allowing her to position her fighters exactly where they could do the most damage. "All fighter squadrons, target their communication arrays," she ordered. "Cut them off from each other. Make them fight as individuals instead of as a fleet." The human fighters were small and fast, using the same dimensional folding technology as the larger ships. They struck Valdari communication systems with surgical precision, then vanished before defensive fire could reach them. Soon, the Valdari fleet was blind and deaf. Ships could not talk to each other. Commanders could not coordinate attacks. The perfect formation that had intimidated so many worlds was falling apart. "Sir, we're losing this battle," Velthara said quietly. "These humans are not like anything we've faced before." Admiral Kethvar looked at the tactical display. Of his 1,000 ships, less than half were still in fighting condition. The rest had been destroyed, captured, or pulled into dimensional prisons. His mighty fleet was being defeated by an enemy that had seemed primitive just hours ago. But the worst part was not losing the battle. The worst part was realizing that the humans had been ready for this fight all along. They had not just prepared defenses, they had prepared to win. For the first time in Valdari history, a conquest fleet was facing complete defeat, and Admiral Kethvar was beginning to understand that Earth was not just another primitive world to be conquered. Earth was a trap that had been waiting for the Valdari Empire to walk into it. Admiral Kethvar had never given a retreat order in his entire military career. For 40 years he had led Valdari fleets to victory after victory, but as he watched his once mighty armada being systematically destroyed by an enemy that fought like living nightmares, he knew he had no choice. "All ships," he said into the communication system, his voice heavy with defeat, "fall back to hyperspace jump coordinates. We are withdrawing from this system. War Commander Velthera stared at him in shock. Admiral, we cannot retreat. The Empire has never faced humans before, Kethvar cut her off. Look at our losses, Velthera. Look at what they've done to us. The tactical display told a horrible story. Of the 1,000 ships that had entered Earth's system with such confidence, only 400 were still combat-ready. 200 had been completely destroyed. 300 had simply vanished into the humans' dimensional traps. The remaining 100 were damaged and barely able to fight, but the humans were not content to let them leave. As the Valdari fleet began moving toward the edge of the system, human ships pursued them. Not attacking directly, but following like predators stalking wounded prey. General Cho Minji's voice came through the communication channels one final time. Admiral Kethvar, you have a choice to make. Withdraw all Valdari forces from the Orion arm of the galaxy and consider it a neutral zone. Continue your expansion elsewhere and we'll have no quarrel with you. She paused, and her voice became colder. Refuse and we'll show you what happens when a peaceful species decides it's had enough of being peaceful. Kethvar did not answer. He was too busy trying to save what remained of his fleet. The Valdari ships reached the hyperspace jump point and began disappearing into faster-than-light travel. But even in hyperspace, they were not safe. Human vessels appeared alongside them, matching their speed and course with impossible ease. They're following us through hyperspace, Sensor Operator Yethmar reported with fear in his voice. How are they keeping up with us? Captain Lee Do-yun was leading the pursuit in his probability ship. He had been promoted to admiral during the battle, a field promotion that recognized his brilliant tactical leadership. All human ships, maintain pursuit formation, he ordered. Don't let them group up. Keep them scattered and afraid. The running battle continued across 3 star systems. Every time the Valdari tried to stop and regroup, human ships would appear out of folded space and attack their most vulnerable vessels. The humans were not trying to destroy the entire fleet. They were trying to make a point. The point was that the Valdari Empire was no longer safe anywhere. In the Dominion's Edge's command center, strategic analyst Morden was studying the human pursuit tactics with growing horror. Admiral, they're not fighting to destroy us, he said. They're fighting to teach us something. Teach us what? Kethvar asked. That they can reach us anywhere. That there is nowhere in the galaxy we can hide from them. This was a lesson the Valdari had never needed to learn. They had always been the hunters, never the hunted. They had always been the ones pursuing fleeing enemies, not running from superior forces. But now they understood what it felt like to be prey. The pursuit continued for days. The humans demonstrated abilities that seemed to violate the laws of physics. They could appear anywhere without warning. They could predict Valdari movements before the Valdari made them. They could strike at the exact moment and place where they would do the most psychological damage. Dr. Choi Soo-young was the human tactical analyst responsible for predicting Valdari behavior. She had studied recordings of every Valdari battle for years, learning how they thought and fought. The Valdari will try to make a stand at the Kepler Nebula, she told Admiral Lee Do-yun. It's a natural defensive position. They think the gas clouds will hide them from our sensors. Will it work? Admiral Lee asked. Dr. Choi smiled. Only if they don't understand that we can see through dimensions as well as through space. She was right. When the Valdari fleet took refuge in the thick gas clouds of the Kepler Nebula, human ships appeared inside the clouds without warning. The nebula provided no protection against enemies who could fold space-time around themselves. But the humans' most devastating attack was yet to come. Admiral Kethvar received word that another Valdari fleet was approaching to help him. The battle group World's End was coming from the Empire's core systems. It included the Empire's most powerful weapon, a planet-killer dreadnought that could destroy entire worlds with a single shot. Finally, Velthera said when she heard the news, let the humans try their tricks against the World's End. No species has ever stood against that ship. The massive dreadnought emerged from hyperspace in a flash of energy that lit up half the star system. It was 3 times larger than any other ship in the Valdari fleet, covered in weapons that could crack planets in half. Admiral Kethvar felt hope returning. The World's End was invincible. Its shields could absorb the energy of a star. Its weapons could destroy anything that existed in normal spacetime. But the humans had been waiting for this moment too. All human vessels, implement Capture Protocol 7, Admiral Yu Jinyuk ordered from his flagship Indomitable. 1,000 human ships materialized around the world's end in perfect formation. They had not come to destroy the dreadnought. They had come to capture it. Impossible, Velthera whispered. You cannot capture a ship that large. Dr. Park Hyung's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, you underestimate human engineering. We've built dimensional anchor points specifically designed for vessels of this size. The space around the world's end began to ripple and bend. Reality itself was being manipulated by human technology. The great dreadnought, for all its power and size, was being pulled out of normal space-time like a fish being reeled in by a hook. Sir, the world's end is disappearing, Yethmar reported. It's being pulled into some kind of dimensional pocket. Inside the pocket dimension, the crew of the world's end found themselves surrounded by human ships and completely cut off from the outside universe. Admiral Yu Jinyuk's voice echoed through their communication systems. Crew of the world's end, you have two choices. Surrender your vessel peacefully or we will take it by force. Either way, this ship now belongs to Earth. The capture of the Empire's most powerful weapon was the final humiliation. Admiral Kethvar realized that his fleet was not just defeated, it was completely outmatched by an enemy that seemed to have prepared for every possible scenario. Colonel Park Minho was leading the boarding parties that were taking control of captured Valdari vessels. His teams moved through the ships like they had studied the layouts for years, which they had. Remember, treat the prisoners with respect, he told his soldiers. These people are going to help us understand more about the Empire's structure and weaknesses. The surviving Valdari ships were finally allowed to escape. But they carried with them the knowledge that the mighty Empire had suffered its first major defeat. They had lost over half their fleet, their most powerful weapon, and their reputation for invincibility. As Admiral Kethvar's battered ships limped back toward Empire space, he knew that everything had changed. The Valdari Empire had always ruled through fear and superior technology. Now there was a species in the galaxy that did not fear them, a species that had turned their own tactics against them, a species that had been waiting for them to come. The humans had not just defeated the Valdari fleet. They had done something much worse. They had made the Valdari Empire look weak, and in a galaxy where strength was everything, appearing weak was the most dangerous thing that could happen to a conquering empire. Word of the defeat would spread. Other species would hear what happened at Earth. Some would be inspired to rebel. Others would wonder if the Valdari were as invincible as they claimed. Admiral Kethvar realized that his failed conquest of one small blue world might be the beginning of the end for the Valdari Empire itself. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, the galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The Valdari Empire had declared a quarantine zone around the entire Orion arm of the galaxy. No Valdari ship was allowed within 50 light-years of human space. The order had come directly from the Emperor himself, marking the first time in Empire history that territory had been declared off-limits to Valdari expansion. But the humans had not been content to simply defend their own world. Admiral Lee Do-hyun, now commanding the captured Valdari dreadnought World's End, led the first human diplomatic mission beyond Earth's solar system. The massive ship had been completely refitted with human technology, turning it from a weapon of conquest into a symbol of protection. Ambassador Lee Nari, "Are you ready for our first contact with the Centauri Republic?" Admiral Lee asked. Ambassador Lee Nari was a calm woman with experience in difficult negotiations. She had been chosen to lead humanity's diplomatic efforts because she understood that fear could be as powerful as friendship in building alliances. "I'm ready, Admiral. The Centauri have been under Valdari rule for over 200 years. They may not trust us immediately." The World's End dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Centauri system. The blue-skinned humanoids who lived there had been some of the first species conquered by the Valdari Empire. They had lived under alien rule for so long that few remembered what freedom looked like. Centauri defense ships approached the human vessel carefully. They were small and outdated, clearly designed more for keeping order than for real combat. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself," came the transmission from the lead Centauri ship. "This is Admiral Lee Do-hyun of the Earth Defense Force," Lee replied. "We come in peace. We would like to speak with your government about recent changes in this region of the galaxy." The Centauri pilot sounded confused. Earth Defense Force? We have no records of any species called humans. And that ship? It looks like a Valdari dreadnought. It was a Valdari dreadnought, Admiral Lee said calmly. Now it belongs to Earth. We took it from them during the Battle of Earth 6 months ago. Silence filled the communication channel. The idea that anyone could capture a Valdari ship was almost unthinkable. The idea that someone had captured their most powerful vessel was impossible to believe. You claim you defeated the Valdari Empire? The pilot finally asked. Not the entire empire, Ambassador Lee Nari said, joining the conversation. Just the 1,000-ship fleet they sent to conquer our world. We sent the survivors home with a message. News of the human arrival spread quickly through the Centauri system. Within hours, the planet's government had agreed to meet with the strange new species that claimed to have defeated their Valdari masters. The meeting took place in the Centauri capital city, a place that had been rebuilt according to Valdari specifications after their conquest. The buildings were tall and cold, designed to remind the Centauri of their subjugation every day. Prime Minister Valerian of the Centauri Republic was an old man who had lived through the original Valdari invasion. He had seen his people's proud civilization reduced to a client state. He had little hope that anything could change. Humans, he said, studying Ambassador Lee Nari across the negotiation table. We have heard rumors, but we did not believe them. You truly defeated a Valdari conquest fleet? We did more than defeat them, Ambassador Lee replied. We captured their most advanced technology and learned their weaknesses. Most importantly, we proved that the Valdari Empire is not invincible. She activated a holographic display that showed the Battle of Earth from beginning to end. The Centauri delegation watched in amazement as human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts, trapping Valdari vessels in dimensional prisons and turning their own tactics against them. This is impossible, whispered Defense Minister Kavtar. The Valdari have superior technology, superior numbers, superior everything. They have superior technology for fighting conventional enemies, Commander Kim Tae-woo explained. He had accompanied the diplomatic mission to provide tactical expertise. But humans are not conventional. We adapt, we innovate. We find new ways to solve old problems. Dr. Park Hae-young, now leading Earth's Advanced Research Division, demonstrated some of the technology that had made victory possible. He showed how human scientists had learned to manipulate dimensions, how they could exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously, and how they had turned Valdari strength into Valdari weakness. We're not offering you weapons, Ambassador Lee Nari said carefully. We're offering you protection. The Valdari Empire rules through fear. Take away that fear, and their power begins to crumble. Prime Minister Valerian was quiet for a long time. Finally he spoke. What do you want from us? We want you to be free, Ambassador Lee said simply. Free to govern yourselves, free to choose your own path, free to live without fear of Valdari reprisals. It was an offer that seemed too good to be true, but the evidence was overwhelming. The humans had indeed defeated the Valdari. Their technology was real. Their offer of protection appeared genuine. Within a week, the Centauri Republic had formally withdrawn from the Valdari Empire and requested human protection. Similar scenes played out across dozens of star systems. Species that had been conquered centuries ago suddenly found themselves with a choice. They could continue serving the Empire, or they could join the growing coalition of worlds under human protection. The Korthani chose freedom after 300 years of servitude. The crystal beings of Zephyr Prime abandoned their Valdari overlords after seeing recordings of the Battle of Earth. The aquatic Marrakesh declared independence and requested human assistance in defending their ocean worlds. General Woo Kyung-soo was establishing the new human defense coalition from a captured Valdari space station. The station had been converted into a mobile command center that could protect multiple systems simultaneously. How many worlds have requested our protection now? He asked his aide. 73 systems, sir. And the number is growing daily. General Woo nodded. This was exactly what Earth's leaders had hoped for. They were not building an empire through conquest. They were building a coalition through protection and mutual benefit. But not everyone in the galaxy was happy about these changes. Dr. Nam Ji-young, Earth's chief intelligence analyst, was studying reports from throughout known space. What she was seeing worried her. Admiral Lee, she said during a secure communication from Earth. We have a problem. The other major galactic empires are taking notice of what happened to the Valdari. They're not just curious, they're concerned. On her screen appeared intelligence reports from across the galaxy. The hegemony of worlds was mobilizing its fleets. The Stellar Dominion was conducting war games near human-protected space. The ancient Void Lords were emerging from their isolated systems for the first time in centuries. They see us as a threat, Admiral Lee realized. More than that, Dr. Nam said. They see us as the end of the old order. For thousands of years, the galaxy has been dominated by a few powerful empires who ruled through superior technology and military might. We've proven that those advantages can be overcome. Commander Kim Tae-woo joined the conversation from his position aboard the World's End. Sir, our intelligence sources indicate that the other empires are forming an alliance. They're planning a coordinated response to what they call the human problem. This was troubling news. While Earth had defeated one empire, facing multiple empires simultaneously would be a much greater challenge. Admiral Lee looked at the star maps showing human-protected territory. 73 systems now looked to Earth for protection. Billions of beings were depending on human promises of freedom and security. How much time do we have? He asked. Unknown, Dr. Nam replied. But our deep space sensors are detecting unusual fleet movements throughout the galaxy. Something big is being planned. Ambassador Lee Nari was on the bridge of the World's End when the conversation ended. She had been listening to the intelligence reports with growing concern. Admiral, what are we going to do? She asked. Admiral Lee looked out at the stars through the ship's massive windows. Somewhere out there, multiple galactic empires were preparing for war, not war against each other, as had been common for millennia, but war against humanity and its allies. We're going to do what humans have always done when faced with impossible odds, he said finally. We're going to adapt. We're going to innovate. And we're going to prove once again that being human means never giving up. Dr. Park Hyung's voice came through the communication system from his research facility on Earth. Admiral, I think I have good news. We've been studying the quantum signatures of the other galactic empires. Each one has weaknesses just like the Valdari did. Different weaknesses, but weaknesses nonetheless. What kind of weaknesses? Commander Kim asked. The hegemony relies too heavily on artificial intelligence. The Stellar Dominion uses predictable attack patterns. The Void Lords haven't adapted their technology in over 1,000 years. Admiral Lee felt hope returning. Humans had defeated one empire by understanding its weaknesses and turning them into advantages. There was no reason they could not do the same thing again. Then we'd better start preparing, he said. Because it looks like the galaxy is about to learn another lesson about what happens when you underestimate humanity.